The big questions about RIKT kicktails are what sets them apart from a traditional traction pad, and why would you want to remove a perfectly good traction pad off your surfboard to install a RIKT?
The answer is simple. If you've got a RIKT kicktail on your board, you're going to surf better. Using a RIKT, you'll be able to surf with more power and control than is possible with a traditional traction pad. That's because it's much more than just traction. To help you understand why these kicktails work so well and can take your surfing to the next level, let's start by taking a look at the 6 reasons why surfing with or without traditional traction pads is limited. When surfing, your back knee naturally comes forward, which causes the outside edge of your back foot to come up, and you often end up having all of the connection to your board resting only on the inside edge of your back foot. So if you push too hard, you'll slip right off your board.
Traditional traction pads don't do anything to help with this issue because they're flat. They have a kicktail that's designed to help you feel where the back of the board is, but it's not designed to stand on. It's not as wide as your foot, so if you do try standing on it, you'll end up kind of straddling it with your foot half on and half off. This feels awkward and it's easy to slip off. And traction pads are limited to how far back they can go by the leash plug.
If you want to nail super aggressive tight turns, you're going to want to have your rear foot further back than a traditional traction pad can go. So you either don't use a pad and you surf flat-footed, or if you do use a pad, you have to straddle that kicktail and it feels awkward.
Another problem with traditional traction pads is that once you glue on your board, they're hard to get off, and if a new pad design comes along and you want to try, you have to trash your current pad and try a new one, and they don't handle sun exposure very well and start falling apart almost immediately. The edges chip off, and even though they still work, they can make your beautiful, super cool surfboard look pretty beat up. The last and most important problem with traditional traction pads is that they don't grip as well as wax.
To see for yourself, take your hand and press across a nicely waxed part of your surfboard. Then run your hand across the wax and feel the amount of grip between the wax and your hand. Then try the same thing again, only this time run your hand across the flat part of your traction pad. It's pretty easy to see that EVA foam traction pad material doesn't grip as well as the wax. Even with all of these limitations, professional surfers all use traction pads because the kicktail on a traction pad gives your back foot a solid point of reference, and this is why most surfers surf better with a pad than without one. But for the reasons I've just explained, traditional traction pads aren't perfect.
A RIKT kicktail uses wax for grip, so there's no need for any EVA foam or traction material on your board that can wear out. Each RIKT has a ramp designed to support your entire foot, angled perfectly for surfing, so your back foot sits flat on the ramp when going for a snap or carve or any other maneuver, and you don't have to bend your ankle. With your back foot completely supported and angled perfectly, you can push against the tail of your board with a lot more force than is possible with a traction pad and not fall off. Carving and driving off the bottom is significantly more powerful and controlled. Plus, a RIKT can go up and over the leash plug, so your back foot can be further back than is possible with a traction pad, and right on top of the perfect spot for executing a super tight turn. A RIKT makes it so easy to get your back foot locked into the perfect place for explosive snaps, which can be a real game changer for surfers at pretty much any level.
And on top of that, they're less expensive than traditional traction pads. The RIKT lineup is launching with the flat top and vertical rise kicktails. The flat top is an easy transition from a regular traction pad and offers a great feeling of connection to your board. The vertical rise kicktail creates a pocket for your foot that makes it almost impossible to slip out of. It's easy to lock onto the ramp. It's like you don't even have to think about it, where to put your foot. This kicktail is great for taking off on really steep waves where you've got just a split second to plant your back foot and you can't miss. Then, once you start surfing, you can get much more aggressive turns and snaps because your back foot is really locked in place.
But what blew my mind and what makes this RIKT system a total game changer is that all the kicktails are interchangeable. So just like you change fins on your surfboard, now you can change kicktails. Instead of gluing a pad to your surfboard, with a RIKT, you just stick a mounting plate on your board, which by the way is really easy to do, and slip on whatever kicktail you want to surf on that day. And there are lots of new kicktail designs in development right now, so you will have tons of options. Another cool thing about RIKT kicktail is that they're environmentally friendly and they're interchangeable. One RIKT can take the place of 10 traction pads on your next 10 surfboards. And if you break a surfboard and have to throw it away, you just take off the RIKT mounting plate from the broken board and put it on your new board.
Once you've experienced what RIKT kicktails can do for your surfing, you would never want to go back to an old-fashioned traction pad. And it doesn't matter what your ability level is. Beginning and intermediate surfers will immediately start turning with more power and control, and pro surfers will be able to push the limits of their boards even further and pull off maneuvers impossible to do without a RIKT. Surfing is all about having fun, and let's face it, you're going to have more fun if you're pulling off crazier tricks and not falling. So if you're stuck on a plateau and want to take your surfing to the next level, it's a no-brainer. You want to start riding a RIKT.
My first day on a RIKT was at Lower Trestles, and it felt so good to have my back foot locked onto the ramp. And since the ramp positions your back foot farther back than is possible with a traction pad, all of my carves and turns were sharper and so much easier to nail. And I really felt the extra drive and control I had coming off the bottom, and how much harder I could push off the top with this feeling of just knowing I wasn't going to slip off. The bottom line is, no matter what your ability level is, you're gonna surf better with a RIKT than a traditional traction pad. So if you wanna take your surfing to the next level, I would highly recommend getting a RIKT.
If there's rideable surf, I'm out at Lower Trestles 7 days a week. So I've been able to really put my RIKT through the paces. The big thing I've noticed is that the ramp is so good at helping me put my back foot exactly in the right spot for nailing big power turns and super sharp snaps without falling. First, because it supports my whole foot, and secondly, because with my back foot further back than I can put it with a traditional traction pad, I can really feel those tighter turning radiuses. And what's really cool is I've been getting compliments from other surfers who have noticed an improvement in my surfing. The bottom line is I'm surfing better with a RIKT than with a regular traction pad, and the wax grip is epic. I feel so connected to my board. Once you've ridden RIKT, surfing with a traditional traction pad feels like taking a step backwards. Installing a RIKT is an effective, inexpensive way to make any surfboard you're riding perform better. If surfing is your passion, like it is for me, I'd highly recommend getting a RIKT.
There's no need for any EVA foam on your board if you've installed a RIKT, and using wax for grip works great. But some of you are so used to the feel of a traction pad under your feet, you're going to want that option. With that in mind, we've designed a traction pad you can mount in front of your RIKT, so you can have the advantage of a RIKT kicktail along with the familiar feel of a traction pad. Whatever you've got to do to get a RIKT on your board is going to be worth it for the improvement you'll experience in your surfing. So if that means installing a traction pad, then go for it. So you can use wax for grip or a RIKT traction pad. The choice is yours. I've been surfing for 50 years, and before I started surfing on a RIKT, I had fun, but I wasn't shredding. The first day surfing with a RIKT, I felt a connection to my board like never before. And after a few months of practice, I was pulling up sharper snaps and carving with more power than any time in my entire life. Mainly because I can just tell I'm not going to slip off my board. That gives you this confidence, and when you've got that confidence in the water, people can tell. Surfers have been coming up to me after a ride saying stuff like, "Hey man, you really shredded that last wave." I mean, that sort of thing has never happened to me before. it's one thing for me to feel the difference, but getting compliments in the water, it's kind of beyond belief. So if these kicktails can do that for me at age 68, honestly, they can do it for anyone.